ADHDers can feel so much shame, struggling with the challenges of focus, being disorganized, losing things, forgetting things. We can feel bad enough with ourselves for these things. But on top of that, there's other people's perception of our struggles with these things. People can see us as lazy or incompetent when we're genuinely trying our best. We have external and internal factors fighting against us. So why do we feel so much shame, and how can we overcome it? Hi, by the way, I'm Chris. I help fellow ultra-normal brains focus, grow, and get stuff done. I was diagnosed with ADHD only a few years ago, and I lived crippled with shame. And that shame actually got worse after my diagnosis. And it's true that a lot of ADHDers can suffer from a huge amount of shame, and not addressing it can lead to a lot of negative feedback loops within ourselves. So why does this shame happen? At a basic level, shame is designed to alert us that something is gonna get us kicked out of a social group. It's our lizard brain telling us that there's some sort of danger in what we're doing. And that feeling is designed to try to limit us doing that thing in the future so that we don't get kicked out of our social group. So shame in itself is not a bad thing. It's there to help us monitor and modify our behavior. But the problem comes from when we think that we are the problem rather than our actions. As ADHDers, we can build up a lot of shame over time from the idea that we have repeatedly failed to meet other people's expectations. Often as kids, ADHDers are told that we are lazy, careless, we should be doing better, and that we need to apply ourselves more. And as kids, all of these comments usually come from parents or teachers. But these comments can continue into adulthood by partners, bosses, and colleagues. And we can fall into the trap of, rather than looking at our actions, we can listen to others' views on our character and think, I'm the problem. And that shame can build up. That thinking, those thoughts that we are the problem, that is toxic shame. And this shame can manifest itself in loads of different ways. Things like productive procrastination. Because we can struggle with long-term projects and feel the shame of that, we can become over-reliant on things that give us small victories in order to avoid the shame of struggling with larger projects, which we can often give up on. For example, let's say you have a project due in for your boss tomorrow. Instead of doing that and potentially failing at that, you maybe decide to reorganize your kitchen. Something small that's kind of low stakes that we can celebrate temporarily. What happens is that we can use this productive procrastination to limit our failures, our feeling of failures. When we feel ashamed of our challenges, we can end up masking. For those who don't know, masking is a kind of a learned response of trying to hide your ADHD symptoms in order to appear normal. So things like coming up with excuses for being late, reacting in conversations with how you feel you're expected to react rather than how you actually feel, forcing yourself to be quiet in conversations, sitting on your hands to cover up your hyperactive side. Masking can even be hiding symptoms to ourselves. It can be trying to convince ourselves that our symptoms aren't there. Toxic shame can also manifest in perfectionism. We can overcompensate with perfectionism, creating unattainable goals for ourselves, or worse, just simply pretending to be perfect. There's a 2002 study that showed that perfectionism actually leads to worse outcomes. It makes you feel less satisfied in life and make you feel like your life is less creative and fulfilling. Shame can lead to people pleasing. I've actually done an entire video on people pleasing, which I'll link to above. But for now, just understand that this shame that we feel inside can lead to this overcompensation where we feel ashamed of our symptoms and we feel like we almost have to make it up to other people by showing them that we do really care, that we are worthy of love and of respect and of people liking us. So how can we start to overcome this shame? Well, the first step is to simply understand what shame is. Shame is a feeling based on your thoughts, based on your experiences. We are not born with shame. Shame is developed over time through our experiences. And simply just the understanding that this is a collection of thoughts leading to a feeling rather than part of you is a great first step. It helps you to distance yourself from that feeling. And we can start by labeling that feeling. Just labeling the feeling yourself and saying, I feel shame, or thinking to yourself, I feel shame, reminding yourself of that can help to temper the feeling itself. This is called affect labeling. So understanding it is first, and the next step is to accept that you feel shame. Don't deny yourself of that is a feeling that you feel. When you try to reject an emotion, it actually makes it feel worse because it adds an extra layer of it. There's a phrase that really sums this up. Whatever you try to resist will persist. So when it comes to the shame emotion, the shame that you feel, it's really important to accept it within yourself that you do feel shame. The next thing that you can do to overcome the shame is to start to find people who also have similar challenges and start to connect with those people. Whether it's joining a community, watching videos, reading books, building a support group of people who have a similar mind, and start to understand how they unpack that shame, how they deal with that shame, how they overcome it. Just simply recognizing that you're not alone in this and that shame is a perfectly normal feeling to have, and it's actually quite common with a lot of ADHDers. Next, take another look at the story of why you develop your beliefs, like the shame that you feel. Where did it come from? What are the comments that stuck with you, that still stick with you? What is the origin story of the shame that you feel? When you start to unpack that and when you start to look into how this developed, it makes it easier to understand and to recognize as a thought pattern rather than part of you. So by taking the time to revisit how this shame has developed over time, it's a lot easier to be able to unpack it and untangle the shame threads that we feel, but it's not part of us. But it's important to look at that without judgment. We don't need to add an extra layer of shame for feeling shame. So recognizing that our past failures are part of the journey. When we look back at these past failures, we have a choice. We can choose to look at it as something that is to be ashamed of, or we can choose to look at it as learning opportunities. For a very long time, I looked back at my past, at all of my failures, and I felt so much shame thinking, oh my God, I've hurt this person, I've done this to this person, or that's so embarrassing, that's such a failure. But what I've learned is I can choose to see them as learning opportunities. Not one single human being on this planet lives a life without failing. Personal growth is non-stop. This is something that we continue to do. Just because we have ADHD does not mean that we cannot grow. We are fully capable of learning and doing better and growing. And if you do want more on ADHD and more tools, then sign up to my weekly newsletter or my free focus bootcamp, where I dig into the tools that me and other fellow Ultranormal members use every single day. So yes, we have ADHD. Yes, that has led to some events in the past that we are embarrassed of and that we have felt shame for. But that doesn't mean that we are destined to repeat these things in the future. We are able to grow, we are able to learn, we are able to do more. It's also important to set reasonable goals for yourself. You know, we have ADHD. It's important to recognize that. So trying to live by neurotypical standards, that means that we will always fail if we try to live by their standards. Don't set yourself goals on things that you think you should be doing rather than the things that you want to do. That is part of you. I'll actually be making a future video on what are good ADHD goals. So if you do want to see that video, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. But for now, just bear in mind that your actions should be aligned with who you are, not who others think you should be or what you think that you should be doing. Just be wary about overcompensating that shame that you feel with people pleasing. You know, we can end up trying to people please but failing. And if you do want to know more about people pleasing, then I actually have a video on it linked to above. Learn your strengths and learn your challenges. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.